streaming today, so when you have a question, raise your hand. I'll get a mic to you. State your name and your affiliation. Streaming ready? All right, Coach.
What happened? You were healthy at the football game. Did you try to play? What'd you do?
I was at the Suns and I separated an AC joint.
Get out of here.
For real.
Were you trying to be an athlete? What are you doing?
Yeah, I went one-on-one with DeAndre and it didn't go well.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
So I got the whole team here.
All right, good. Obviously, coming off a bye week is an important week for us. I made the comment to our football team that sometimes bye weeks are really good, but they also can backfire on you too if you don't get yourself ready to play. Oregon had a really tough opponent in Cal. They were playing at home, and the score was 7-0 at half. And so I got to give them a warning now. Hey, this bye week's really good. You get rested up. But you got to get into the mode of playing football again, and that's kind of what hurts you on a bye week, and it happens in the NFL as well. Bye weeks are great. Players love it. Coaches love it. You get to look at yourself. You evaluate your team. You evaluate all the things you'd like to do better. But at the end, emotionally, there's a little bit of a letdown because you're used to playing every week. You're used to preparing every week. So now we've missed a week of that, and now we got to start preparing for a really good opponent, especially offensively. They're averaging about 44 points a game. They do a good job on third down. They keep the ball, and they score a lot of points. These guys have scored 224 points. So they have a way of getting the ball in the end zone. Don't like punting a lot. 11 punts, I think, all season. So that tells you kind of what type of offense they are. Defense now has made a little bit of a change. Don't know exactly what they're going to be. Now, I do know this, the players don't change. So the players are the players according to what he wants to do. But I'm sure they're in good hands. When you make a change like that, it always kind of brings shock waves to your football team. But knowing this team and their pedigree, these guys have won an average of 9 games in the last 3 years. Coach Leach has done a marvelous job up there creating an atmosphere of winning. So they know how to win. They've had 2 tough losses. I told our football team they will come in here and they will be at their best. They will be at their best, and so we better be prepared for that when we play them. Questions?
Hod Rabino, Devil's Digest. Herm, going back to that defensive coordinator firing, I mean, in your experience, when you did fire an assistant or coordinator in the middle of the season, I don't know if that happened or not in your career, but do you feel, what are the chances of it rallying the troops versus just being more of an adjustment period for the team?
I've never been a part of that one, and I don't know if it was out of so much a mutual agreement. I'll leave it at that, and that's what Coach said, so that's what I believe. But I've never been involved in that one. Obviously, in football, there's always changes. There just is. Some of them happen in the middle of the season, some of them happen at the end of the year, whatever it may be. I think players are accustomed to that. Now, I've never been around college football. Where when something like this happens in the middle of the season, how they react. These are young people. How they handle that emotionally, it's a little bit different probably than the guys that play on Sunday, because that happens frequently. And you know it. I always said if you're going to be a coach in life, if you're worried about getting fired, then don't be a coach, because it's just a matter of when and when it happens. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with you being a good coach, because a lot of really good coaches have been let go or have gone in another direction, and that's just part of it. But I think these young guys they'll rally. They've lost 2 in a row. I mean, that alone makes you, say, hey, look, we want to win a game again. And like I said, this is a very prideful team. A lot of guys are guys that have been there, that have won a lot of games. So, this conference is a conference where if you look at it, probably the last 5 years, I don't know if anybody's gone undefeated on either both sides of it, North or South. You can lose 2 and still have a shot to win your conference, whether it's the South or North. If you lose 3, that's tough. That's tough sledding in the conference. So I think everyone that's been in this conference, this is what I'm learning. It's only my 2nd year, but just looking at it, going through it, dissecting it, knowing what it's going to take to win on your side. If you lose 3, it's tough. Now, every once in a while, they're going to have one of those seasons where every team is kind of beating up on everybody, and you might get 3. Who knows? So I just think that's where they're at right now.
Tim Healy, Sun Devil Radio Network. Herm, from a defensive perspective, what makes Washington State's air raid offense so difficult to stop, and what are the keys for your defense to have a chance to keep them under control Saturday?
I don't know if you keep them under control. They're going to move the ball. You can't worry about yards. It's more than points. They spread you out. They use every bit of grass on the field. They really do. They attack you inside the numbers a lot with the type of routes they run. The quarterback is a very poised guy. He's very accurate. You can go 2 ways against these guys, and you see it. Some people bring pressure and bring 5 or 6 guys and try to make him get it out of his hand. And when he does that, you got to be able to tackle in space. That's the whole key. They put you in space. They're athletes against your athletes. Quarterback spreads the ball around. There's about 7 or 8 receivers that have 18 to 20 receptions as a whole, so it's not just one guy. And what they do is they spread you out, and they get the ball out of his hand. Doesn't get hit a whole lot because the ball's gone, and they make you react to that. So you can play pressure with him, or you can drop 8. You drop 8, now he stands back there all day. And now you got to, he's going to move around some. He's not going to run a whole lot, but he's going to move around by himself sometimes. Now you got to plash. You got to cover your receiver. He gets in zone. And you have to have a different mindset when you play him because the ball's out so fast. That's the difficulty of it all.
Chris Carmen, Sun Devil Source. Herm, how much, if at all, have you adjusted your leadership or communication style to tailor to college athletes versus the way that you were in the pros?
Leadership styles, for me, I don't know if I've changed that much, to be quite honest. I try to just tell them like it is, tell them the truth. I don't sugarcoat things. I'm always the guy that lets players know where they stand, what they need to do to improve, because that's what players that are motivated to being as good as they can be are motivated to improve. You want to have a platform, you want to have a culture where they're given an opportunity to do that. I think we've established that here. And when you look at all the young guys that have played. But I also know that in life, people like consequences. And the ones that don't, they can never improve. Just can't. Because if you don't know the consequences, then there's no line. And there's a line in life that you can't cross. And if you cross it, there's consequences. And I think the players understand that. I don't believe in belittling players or belittling coaches. I do it my way. And it's generally with a conversation in my office, quietly, and I tell them what I expect out of them. And that's what I do. I expect certain things out of people. That's just me. And I got that from my parents. There's certain things you do, you act a certain way, you do things the right way. When I took this job, everybody was saying, well, he's old school, right? He's old school. No, I'm right school. I just do what's right. And right's never been wrong. It's always right. And that's how life works. Life's not real complicated. And coaching players is not real complicated. Whether you're coaching the Under Armour All-American game, where these guys were in high school, about to go to college, now they're in college, whether you're coaching a professional football player, players want this. Who's ever talking to them, they said, I want that guy to be consistent. If you're consistent, they listen. When you're not consistent and you waver, they go, well, wait a minute now. He's sending a different message. My message is very clear. It starts with me, how I act, how I go about doing my business. I think I've earned their respect, where they know that they're going to get a consistency out of me, whether we win, whether we lose. I'm going to be the same guy every day. And so I think players are comfortable with that. I was that way as a player. I had a taskmaster as a head coach in professional football, is Dick Vermeil. I love a guy like my dad, because he was consistent. You understood what he expected, and that's what you did. And you said, okay, if I do this, I'm good. There's no line. There's no what is it? This is what it is. I'm in, coach. So I think players are all like that. They just want consistency, man. That's all they want. Can you help them get better? And we build our whole foundation on we want to help players get better. We want them to maximize their talent because we can't give them talent. I say it all the time. God gives them their talent. What we have to do is make sure they don't waste it.
Doug Howler, The Athletic. Herm, when Dylan Sterling Cole didn't come out on top in the quarterback battle, a lot of us out here were kind of on transfer watch every day at practice, wanting to see if he was going to be out there or not. Since then, he's played a pretty pivotal role on the scout team. Now you're working him into different special teams units. What does that say about him that, given the setback that he had early in camp, that he's now playing a different role that maybe he could not have envisioned ever before?
Well, I think he's comfortable with the fact that it was competition, and it was never trying to stack the deck against the guy. And we were honest, and we told him and said, look, you can continue to play quarterback, but you can have a role on this football team to help us win games. And he wants to help us win games. No different than Ethan. Ethan came in here as a quarterback. He still plays quarterback sometimes, but he understands this is my role. And I think when you're honest and you're forthright with guys, they might not always like the decision you make as a coach, but if you're given an opportunity, which they all had opportunities now, and it's hard to, 4 quarterbacks, how do you get the reps? How do you give all that? But eventually, somebody's going to be the guy, and then can you deal with that? And a lot of players in today's world, because of the portal, they don't want to deal with that. I give him credit. It says a lot about who he is, and he's been great with the players. I mean, he has been fabulous. And anything I've asked him to do, he's done. Coach, what you want me to do? Can you do this week? Can you be this guy this week? Yeah, Coach, I'll do it. And he's been good with all the players. And I can remember the first day he went over to the scout team when he was playing quarterback, he called them all in the huddle. And he told them, say, look, this is our job, man. Our job is to help these guys get better. And that's a credit to him and who he is. That's a credit of the type of character he has. And it's always good to see a guy like that.
Hey, Coach. Tressa Tetrick, 3TV, CBS 5. You touched on it briefly, but what are some of the mental challenges coming back from a bye week from a team that's lost 2 in a row, and how do you prepare them, not just physically, but, not to offset this? Yeah,
it's tough, and coaches always struggle with buys. Coaches love buys, players love buys, but you get out of the mode of playing football. Now, they've had one too, right? So we're kind of both sitting in the same boat, but here again, this is a very prideful football team that's won a lot of football games in the last 3 years. So they understand where they're at right now. They need to win. We need to win too. I mean, so it's kind of both ways, right? So it's kind of one of those games where you go, okay, I know they're going to be at their best. We have to make sure we're at our best, because you don't want to go in going, no, this is the Pac-12. You see it every week. Somebody beats somebody. It's a head scratcher. You go, how did that just happen, right? It just happens. I mean, you just watch the games being played out. It's just, you scratch your head and you go, how does this happen? I mean, Stanford, prideful football team. One of the best coaches in the Pac-12, one of the best coaches in the country as far as I'm concerned. They had lost a couple, playing with a backup quarterback, the whole 9 yards, playing against a really good football team. They found a way to win. And so that's what's unique about this conference. Every week, you kind of scratch your head. So how did that happen? But that's football.
Jeff.
Hi, Jeff Metcalf, Arizona Republic. Can you just talk about what you gained from an injury standpoint over this bye period? And then also, if you could just comment a little bit on Mike Leach, his style somewhat different than yours.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Okay. Well, the first one is obviously the injury part. Guys are getting healed up, and we had some guys with some bumps and bruises, and every team has that going into the season. There's some certain guys that they need to rest. We were able to give certain guys some rest this week. They all participated yesterday. They're all back practicing, which is good. Nothing serious. Kobe had the hand. He had to get surgery, but he practiced yesterday, so he's good. He's good to go. He's ready to play. Coach Leach from afar, I've watched him from afar, and really kind of marveled at kind of how he goes about his business. He just kind of does it his way. And I think what I like about the guy, he knows who he is, and the players know who he is. There's a consistency about the way he coaches. All I know is one thing: wherever he's been, they score a lot of points. They score a lot of points, boy. And so, I've had some conversations with him, passing. He welcomed me when I got hired here, when we had the coaches meetings, you know, and he kind of welcomed me to the Pac-12, and I've seen him from afar, and I've talked to him a couple times, and very bright guy. He knows football now. This guy, he knows a lot about football, and they always score. I know that. They always score points. And when you play his teams, you better be ready, because they're going to figure it out. They know how to attack defenses, because they've seen every defense imaginable with this offense. They've seen people bring pressure. They've seen people drop 8. They've seen people drop 9 and just rush 2. He's seen it all. And so there's nothing that we can do that he's going to look at and go, I know how to defend. You know, they're going to defend me this way. I'm going to do this. He's really good at adjusting. And so you got to be able to adjust when he adjusts. And that's going to be the cat and mouse game we're going to have to play. Yep.
I just wanted to ask you about Brandon Reese. It seemed like early in the season it was an injury that maybe we thought we'd see him week 1, week 2, or week 2 or week 3. Now here we are almost halfway through the season. What's his status?
His status is he's still not kicking. So I mean, he tried he shaved for yesterday. I want to say when we came back to work, and he felt a little twinge again. So he's out. He's still out. So that's kind of where he's at right now. So we know who our kicker is. And we're going with our guy. And good for him, because the more he kicks, the more confident he becomes. Probably doesn't have the leg, but he's been pretty accurate. He missed a 2, but I trust the guy. He's a hard worker, and he's earning his scholarship now because he's kicking, and that's okay.
Hey, Coach. Adam Noel in Furno Intel. So after the bye week, the team's now up to 18th in the AP 25 rankings. What is that?
How do you move up when you don't play? That didn't even make any sense to me. Oh, my Lord.
But moving into this weekend, is there a pressure to maintain that ranking, or how have you gone about talking to the team to not let that get into their heads?
Well, we haven't handled success very well when they get ranked, as you know. And so that's something else. How do we handle it? How do all these young guys handle all that stuff? I didn't even know that. That's new to me. I mean, I live in a bubble, man. I didn't even know that. We're going to have to prepare and play. I mean, rankings don't help you win games. They really don't. They're nice, you know, because fans, they all, what does that mean? I don't know. It doesn't mean anything till the end. Till the season's over with, then what are you ranked, right? What bowl game you playing in? To me, that's all other stuff is just stuff, man. It's just, it makes you walk around, people say that, but that don't mean a whole lot to me. It's all the same, you know, and it's now if you're one of those teams that's always number 1 or number 2 or number 3, knowing Nick, he don't worry about that stuff. And that some of those teams every year, according to who you are, you're always going to be in the top 5 every year. You know, when the season starts, they're going to project certain teams in the top 5, and is there pressure on them? Yeah, but you know what? They're used to it. They live in it. It's normal. You know, I would hope eventually when we build this program that it will be normal, that it won't be a conversation. It'll be, okay, so what? Who cares? We just have to prepare next week to win it. That's what you want, to be quite honest. I mean, that's what I've always looked at, you know, with good teams. When you're a good team, it's like, you don't worry about that. Just keep playing. I mean, I don't know. That's just, shouldn't be any pressure on you. It should be more of, that's normal. That's where we want to be. And so, you know, maybe one day, you know, down the road as we continue to develop and continue to get better and put this thing together, maybe we'll just feel like you won't have to ask that question anymore, right? Instead of like it's being a surprise, it'll go, oh yeah, that's what it is. So but we're not anywhere near that. So I'm not saying we are, because we're not.
Michael.
Coach Michael Carrasino, Sports Hangover. You talk about this time of year, you always hear, obviously you guys played a lot of freshmen, redshirt freshmen, but the true freshmen coming in, you get to a point of the season, you always hear coaches say, you're not freshmen anymore. Right. Through this first half of the season, coming up to this first half of the season, how do you feel that they've matured, and even the guys that maybe are starting to get more of a look, the competition has helped them as well? Well,
I think you make the point. It's like the NFL. They told me after my second game, hey, you're not a rookie no more. Okay, can't use that excuse. And they're right. It's just after a while, when you become the starter and you play, that's who you are. And the thing they don't have and they continue to get is experience. And the only way you get is play. And every week to them is a different week. It's a different opponent. A lot of these guys haven't played the opponent. Well, now you're going to play them, all right? And so I just think you learn more about your football team. They learn more about themselves. Last year we hit a little bit of a wall for the young guys because they're playing against seniors and juniors that have experience. Some of them are bigger and stronger because they've been in the weight room for 3 years. And, you know, Merlin and Butler and those guys and Rashari that had to play early, and Lole, those guys on defense, they wore down a little bit. It just wore down because of the physicalness of the game of football. And so you kind of anticipate that too. You know, that's why it was good we had a bye. But that's part of it too. And some people don't look at that part, but I look at that part. I look at the physical part of it. Is that, okay, these guys are playing against seniors and juniors every week that are really good football players. And this guy just got out of high school, and he's asked to play at that level for 12 weeks. And they wear down some. They just do. It's not their fault. They just do. And that's the experience they got to go through. So that's part of it.
Chris Carmen, Son Nova Source. Herm, the defensive backs, that's your bread and butter, right? So played well mostly, but there's been some moments, Colorado, and you're right. So where do you think about where this group is at right now coming into this significant task?
We haven't intercepted enough balls, in my opinion. And I told them that. We're better than that. They still struggle, a lot of them, with dirty eyes. They're looking at things they shouldn't look at. And that's the hardest thing about playing back there. You got clean eyes, you got dirty eyes. And generally, dirty eyes are not good because something bad's about to happen. But here again, the way the ball is in the air anymore in college football, even in pro football, look, they're gonna catch the balls on you, man. I mean, that's just part of it. You know, we can't sit here and say, well, they're gonna catch it. They're gonna catch balls on you. They just do. That's the way it works. But does one catch affect you mentally? Does it bother you? Do you get out of whack where all of a sudden now you guess, trying to make a play, and then there's 2 plays. And before you know it, there's 3 plays. And before you know it, it's a bad quarter. Before you know it, it's a bad game. I've always said this, because I played the position, you got to have selective memory. It's got to be selective now. And when the play's done, it's done. And you can't dwell on it. You can't guess. You come over to the sideline, we fix it, we tell you what you did, what you didn't do. But for me right now, we don't play with clean eyes. We just don't. We're trying to see too much. You know, when you do that, things get distorted, and you don't play the ball correctly. So we got to improve. I mean, we should take the ball away more. We've caused a lot of fumbles, but we haven't intercepted the ball and got our hands on enough balls, in my opinion.
Hey, Coach. Tyler Drake, 98.7 FM, Arizona Sports. You said you had some added distractions this week. How has that affected the team's daily routine?
Well, once they get in the building, nothing distracts us. It's how do you handle all the stuff outside the building, you know, and that's the whole key of prioritizing, you know, what you do every day. And the one thing we do understand in college football, no different than pro football now, we have them for 20 hours in a week, 17 total. What do they do when they leave the building? When you win, like anything else, you gain more friends. You become more popular. How do you handle all that? I don't know. If I was 18 years old, I mean, I kind of, you know, okay, yeah, it's good. You know, and how do you handle all that? How do you handle people telling you, hey, great game, that was a great win? You know, how do you, all of them are different. You know, everybody's different. They can't be like me. You know, I'm a whole different cat, man, when it comes to all that stuff. He just told me, Mark didn't even tell me that. Mark's our PR guy. So I wouldn't have known. And I really don't care. All I care about is preparing myself and preparing this football team to win a game. That's all I worry about. And when that game's over, and the time I hit that tunnel, I'm on the next week. I'll deal with the interviews after the game and talk to the press like I'm supposed to do and try to give them everything I can about what happened in the game, and I have moved on. Time I get in my office, I'm already thinking about next week. Marvin's already got the scouting report on them dudes next week. I get in here the next day and I start looking. I go, okay, here we go. So that's it. But I'm not 18 years old, okay? And, so they all a little bit different. All we can do is try to make them focus when we get them on what's at hand. Yesterday, pretty good practice. They ran around. They had a little bit of something in them. And then now we got to do it again and again and again. But that's the part of college football. That's part of it, you know.
Anyone else? Pink
Good.
bow over there.
You know what? Does your mommy make you wear those bows? You know what? I'm gonna tell you something. When my girls were born, they wore bows on their head until they were, how old are you, sweetheart? 7. You got ways to go. They had to go all the way till they were about 11 years old, wore a bow every day, and it looks beautiful, and you look beautiful. So if you keep wearing that bow, you look good with that thing on. All right, thank you guys.